communal in thinking, that you Africans that have excess capital, our pension funds that have pulled together capital, look at investing in Africa first of all before you start thinking of investing elsewhere, especially if you're looking at investing outside Nigeria. And that because there are investment opportunities that are profitable, and you understand the environment a lot better than a European or American or an Asian that is looking at us from outside, you should be in a better position to assess the risk better.
So just give us a sense of what the size of investment is of African countries investing in Africa.
I don't have the figures. But I don't have the figures simply because, you know, you have very small funds that are raised with focus on Africa. And yeah, there are one or two in Nigeria, for instance. I know there are one or two in Ghana as well. But the pool of investable funds focused on that area from Africans is still very small in comparison to what the Europeans and the Americans have actually put together to focus on Africa. Because I must mention that they also have funds focused on Africa. Yes, it may be small in the totality of all their own funds, but they do recognize that there's something here and we need to keep an eye on it. I don't have the figures, but I can assure you one of the things we want to achieve with the investment conference is actually to get more people to pull together those funds that will be focused on investing in Africa.
So that, of course, takes me to the other question I was going to ask you. What does CFA Society of Nigeria want vis-a-vis what the global body is advocating in terms of improved investing in Africa by Africans? Bearing in mind that most of these African countries are more competitive than others. And so they look at it that if we do go ahead and, you know, integrate, we'll be shortchanging ourselves.
Well, let me take it from the last end of the question before I go to what CFA Society is trying to achieve. I don't believe that there's any country that cannot develop itself to have something to offer to others. It's a question of finding your niche. You may not be the best in the world, but at least if they mention the top few, you can become one of them. If you develop that area to the extent that you are competitively better than some others, some capital will flow in that direction. Singapore had nothing when Lee Kuan Yew took over. They had virtually nothing. They were like a country of denigrates, if I'm allowed to use those words. But they found a niche that they could provide services, and they focused policies to develop that area. And today everybody is saying that Singapore has done so well in such a short period of time. So coming back to your question, the CFA Institute as a global body is currently undertaking what is called a Future of Finance project, which is simply put, getting the financial industry to be more trustworthy, forward-thinking, and to run in a manner that serves society. They recognize that society is the ultimate goal for anything that should happen in the financial industry. And they've come up with some pillars that should help us look at what are those areas that we should push in our different markets. Now, the CFA Society Nigeria, for instance, is seeking to push some very basic and simple things. First one is we want investors to demand their rights from anyone that is their financial services provider. So we have launched a statement of investor rights, which are just simple 6 or 7 statements that says that this is what you should demand from your financial services provider. And financial services provider is very broad. Your insurance company is your financial services provider, your bank is your financial services provider, your asset management firm is your pension fund administrator, and I could go on and on. Anyone that handles your finance, you have certain rights which you should demand of them.
And CFA has a way of monitoring and checking to ensure that these rights are enforced.
We're not monitoring. We're just saying that we want to enlighten investors to demand it. So when you have an institution that is not able to promise you those rights, we're saying don't do business with them.
Okay, so but how soon do you expect to see an improvement and an acceptance of the pillars and the statements by CFA?
I gave that sound simply because it's something that, you know, in this market you have to keep pushing, you have to keep pushing, you have to keep pushing. And the CFA Institute and CFA Society in Nigeria actually believes that we should do it through education of the people. So I will not be able to give you a timeline because we're working both on the side of the investors and also from the side of the services provider as well to inculcate certain principles into their HR policy that should ensure they're able to provide it. But we're hoping that soon as the market develops, as we have more people who are charter holders as well, who embody this principle, the culture will spread and the knowledge will also spread as well.
Shade, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Shade Odunaya is the president, CFA Society Nigeria, and they will be holding a conference this week that will be focusing on regional investing, Africa investing in Africans.
Thank you so much, Harriet.
Well, Business Morning continues in just a moment. We take a look at what's happening in early trade from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Rotimi Fakayejo, equities trader and CEO of Enterprise Stockbrokers, joins me after now. Welcome back. Closing moments now on the program. Let's quickly remind you of our poll question for the week. It's been running since last week, but of course it's now on our Twitter page. You can vote in and let's know your thoughts. What should define Nigeria's mid to long-term agenda for Trump's presidency? Should it be social economy, security, or good governance? It's easy, as I said, to be part of this poll. It's on our Twitter handle at BizMorning. You can also send us your thoughts via email to businessmorning@channelstv.com. And of course, another story tracking for you, and of course, the predominating conversation for most of the day is the inflation numbers for the month of October as released by the National Bureau of Statistics. Let's quickly take a look at that and remind you, headline CPI is up 0.83% to 18.3% from September level and worse by 0.48% over a year period. According to the Bureau of Statistics, food sub-index rose 0.48% to 17.1, while all items less food produce climbed 0.4% to 18.1%. Rotimi Fakayejo, an equities trader and CEO of Enterprise Stockbrokers, joins me now to take a look at early numbers from the Nigerian Stock Exchange and, of course, put into perspective if investors are going to be looking at this inflation report while they trade. Good morning to you, Rotimi.
Good morning.
It's great to have you join me on the program. So the inflation report is out. Will investors be taking a look at these numbers as they trade today at the Nigerian Stock Exchange?
Well, definitely that will determine the pattern of trading. But incidentally, at the same time as I'm speaking with you, the market is actually positive, is 0.1% up. And I think the market is getting used to this kind of figures, and I believe that every stock is going to be treated on its own merits going forward. And I think that is where we are seeing some stocks in the banking sector actually popping up in prices and trying to stabilize. So definitely it's going to affect the trading pattern, but for what it is right now, the market is still very much positive.
We're taking a look at where the market finished off from last week. Consumer goods week to date was down 0.55%. Year to date, that's at minus 3.11%. And from the inflation report released today, food sub-index increased 0.47%. Give us a sense of how consumer goods are actually, shaping up in early trade, particularly those that are always investors' delight.
Well, I think for now, there is basically no change in the prices of those consumer goods. The only one that is actually negative for now is Dangote flour, which is trending at 0.14%, which is losing 14 kobo. But for several other securities within that bracket, they aren't seen any change yet. But that doesn't mean that as trading proceeds, that there won't be anything. There won't be any negative differential to what we are seeing presently. But for me, I believe that with the inflation rate standing at 18.3%, it's quite very high, and I only hope that the NPR will not be tampered with further in order for them to be able to make an adjustment to bridge up that differential in the treasury bill rate and the new inflation rate. But for now, the market is already used to this negative position of the money market. And I believe that the inflation rate definitely may not really continue in this set. We may begin to see a change come November, come December. And I think at that time, there definitely will be, the market will have adjusted to that too.
Rotimi Fakayijo, equities trader and CEO of Enterprise Stockbrokers, thank you so much for joining us this morning and, of course, giving us a perspective of early trade from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And that's it on today's edition of the program. Many thanks for starting the week with us. I'm Harriet Agbinyi. Have a profitable day.